The millionaire saw the scar on the boy's face and went pale, but the words he heard next completely knocked the ground out from under him. The boy was scrubbing the windshield with a dirty rag, but it felt like he was trying to wipe off his own face. Every swipe made the grime in his eyes more visible, the exhaustion in his skin, the scar hidden beneath his hair. The light had been red for 40 seconds, long enough for a 25-year-old billionaire to completely lose his footing, because that scar, it was the same one, the exact same one he had last seen 10 years ago, on the face of a brother who never came back. The engine was still humming in idle, but inside Liam, his heart was pounding louder than anything. Cars behind him honked impatiently. He didn't hear any of it. He only saw the boy, with the rag, the skinny frame, the look in his eyes that asked for nothing. No pity, no help. He simply existed there like a mistake the world had forgotten. The glass was clean, but Liam didn't look away. The boy turned to the next car without saying a word, and in that simple act, the act of walking away, Liam moved. He flung the car door open. The driver behind him shouted, a cab nearly clipped his mirror. But Liam was already out, stepping onto the hot asphalt, suit jacket open, tie crooked. The boy turned, startled, ready to run, but he didn't. "What's your name?" The question left Liam's mouth before he had time to think. The boy squinted, trying to figure out if it was a joke, a threat, or something worse. "Why?" he shot back, not moving closer. "You gonna call the cops?" Liam swallowed hard. He'd memorized that face for years from faded childhood photos, but it couldn't be. There was no way it could be him. No way he'd be here wiping windshields at the corner of 8th and Grand. And still, you have a scar on your eyebrow. How'd you get it? The boy touched his face, suspicious, like he never realized anyone might notice that. "I fell. When I was really little." Silence fell little. The words hit Liam's chest like a wrecking ball, because that's exactly what their mother always said. He fell trying to climb the backyard wall right before he disappeared, but there was something Liam still didn't know. The boy stepped back, ready to bolt. He didn't trust men, in expensive cars, and for good reason. He'd seen too much, slept in places that smelled like piss and pity. Liam took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, it's just, I lost someone, a long time ago. A brother." The boy's eyes hardened. Like Liam had hit a place he didn't want touched, but he didn't run. Everybody loses someone. It wasn't just an answer. It was a message, and Liam got it. This wasn't the place for miracles or soap opera reunions, but then the boy said something that froze Liam to the bone. Sometimes people don't disappear. They run, and, for a second, the whole world spun. Because Liam had never thought of that. He'd always believed his brother had been taken, kidnapped, lost. Never that he had chosen to leave. "Run. Run from what?" Liam asked, barely a whisper. The boy looked down, and for the first time the truth weighed heavier than the dirt on the glass. Home. From what they did to him in there. And then, Liam heard it, a loud blaring horn, a truck charging forward as the light turned green, and the boy ran, vanished between the cars like smoke on a hot August street. Liam tried to follow, but stumbled, fell, got shoved by an angry biker. By these Time he stood up, the boy was gone, but the question stayed. And it hurt more than any fall. What really happened in that house 10 years ago? Liam had never known what to do with silence. Ever since he was a kid, noise had been his hiding place. He grew up turning on radios, TVs, video games, anything, to drown out the shouting from the kitchen, the tears from his mother. But that morning, after seeing the boy with the scar, silence clung to him like fever. The kind of silence that carries too many questions. On the way to the company building, he didn't say a word. Not to the assistant riding up with him to the 47th floor trying to talk stocks and forecasts. Not to the secretary reminding him of a meeting with Silicon Valley investors. Nothing. Because inside, the noise from 10 years ago was screaming loud again. He was 11 when his brother disappeared. His name was Caleb. 2 years younger, smaller, quieter. They shared a bedroom. Caleb didn't talk much, but Liam always knew something in him was broken. When their parents yelled, Caleb shrank. When the master bedroom door closed, Caleb shook. But Liam was just a kid too. And kids don't know how to name abuse. They just know how to be afraid. Liam remembered that specific night with cruel clarity. His dad was drunk. His mom was crying. His brother's eyes were wide with fear. Then just the door slamming, the absence and silence. At first they thought he got lost. Then came theories of kidnapping. The news showed up, the police too, but nothing. No clues, no answers. Just the empty bottom bunk and the echo of a name. No one said anymore. Caleb.Liam grew up fast after that. Grew up not trusting anything because trust hadn't saved his brother. At 15, he was selling computer parts online. By 17, he'd built a logistics AI prototype that would revolutionize a major e-commerce supply chain. By 22, he sold the startup for a fortune. By 23, he was a billionaire. But none of it filled the hole. Not the parties, not the cars, not the magazine covers. Because every time the city got too quiet, Caleb's name came back. He tried to bury it, tried to act like moving on meant growing up. But some pains don't grow with you. They stay small and sharp. That's why when he saw the boy at that corner, the whole world screamed. Because that scar, that posture, that way of glancing at the world sideways like the world might bite, it was all Caleb, but there was still something he didn't understand. Back in the penthouse, Liam turned the TV up full volume and headed to the bathroom. He washed his face like he was trying to scrub off years of unanswered questions. Then he looked in the mirror, and for the first time in forever, he didn't see the billionaire. He saw the big brother who hadn't protected anyone. He grabbed the phone, called the private investigator he'd hired years ago. That search had been abandoned when the money came. But now, it was all that mattered. I want you to sweep everything. Within 2 blocks of Grand Avenue and 8th, there's a kid, skinny, brown skin, scar on his right eyebrow. He's cleaning windshields at stoplights. I want to know who he is, where he sleeps, who he hangs with. On the other end, the PI sighed. He'd heard that tone before, a voice with a hole in it, hoping answers. Could fill it, but he didn't argue. Some calls come from places logic can't reach. Got it. I'll have something in 2 days. Liam hung up and stared out the window. The city sparkled like always, but today it felt dirtier, like the windshields the boy cleaned, like the memories Liam pretended to forget. Then, the phone buzzed. It was his mother. He hadn't spoken to her in over a year. Mom, everything okay? Silence. On the other end, a weak breath. Like every word took effort. Caleb? Did he come back? Liam froze. She knew. She felt it. But what would she say if she knew what the boy had said? Sometimes people don't disappear. They run. And if that was true, what Caleb had run from, was it them? She took her time opening the door. The childhood home looked smaller than Liam remembered. Peeling paint, same old curtains in the windows. The air smelled like mildew and medicine. When his mother finally appeared in the doorway, he saw the same weariness in her eyes, only older, more surrendered. I thought you weren't coming back here, she said without a smile. You called, he replied. He walked in without being invited. The floor still creaked in the same spot in the hallway. The wall clock was off, as always. Everything in that house seemed frozen in time. Everything except the weight of absence. They sat in the living room facing each other, like 2 distant versions of the same story. His mother held a mug of cold tea. Liam held the silence between them. Why? Did you ask about Caleb on the phone? She lowered her eyes, fidgeted with the gold ring she still wore, even though his father had been dead for 5 years. I dreamed about him. In the dream, he came back. But he didn't talk to me. He just looked at you. Liam felt his stomach twist. I saw him yesterday, at an intersection, cleaning windshields. He had a scar on his eyebrow, the same one, and he said something that... It wasn't him, his mother cut in. Too quickly. How can you be so sure? She hesitated. And that's when he knew. There was something she didn't want to remember, or something she had always known, and never said. Mom, what happened to him that night? She stayed silent for far too long, then took a deep breath like someone bracing for a fall. He was getting strange, scared. He'd wake up screaming. Didn't sleep anymore. Said he was hearing things. Things? What kind of things? She trembled. that his father came into the room at night, that he'd say things, that he touched him. I thought it was imagination or a nightmare. He was just a kid. And in that moment, everything collapsed inside Liam because now it made sense. The constant fear, the silence, the hiding in the backyard, the nights Caleb slept curled up with the lights on. "And you didn't do anything?" Liam's voice came out louder than he intended. "I didn't know what to do," she replied, almost crying. "I was scared of him. You know what he was like when he drank." But that wasn't an excuse. Not to Liam. Because her fear cost Caleb his childhood. Maybe his whole life. You were supposed to protect him. She was crying now, and every tear was a confession. "I tried in every way I knew how, but when he disappeared I thought maybe it was better. That he was far away, alive. I prayed for that. Every day. But there was still something, Liam. Didn't know." "And Dad?" Liam asked, his voice colder now. "Did he know Caleb was going to talk?" She nodded slowly. "He got really nervous that night. Left the house in the middle of the night. Came back saying he'd gone looking for the boy. But he came back dirty. Smelled like gasoline. And he never mentioned it again." Liam felt his whole body go cold. "You thought he killed Caleb?" She shook her head desperately. No. But I thought about everything. Everything except asking, except facing it. I was a coward. And you were just a boy. I was scared you'd find out." Liam stood up. The room felt too small for that much pain. "I saw him, Mom. I know I did. He's alive. And he ran because this house was hell." But then she said something that froze him in place. "What if he doesn't want to be found, Liam? What if he remembers you as part of what hurt him?" Liam didn't know how to answer because that thought had never occurred to him. But now, it felt heartbreakingly real. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to like. The next morning, Liam stood at the same intersection. The sun hadn't even warmed the asphalt yet, but he was already sweating. Not from heat, but from nerves, restlessness, an urgency he couldn't hide anymore. The light turned green and red countless times. The boy didn't show up. Dirty rags, makeshift buckets, candy sellers and street performers cycled through with the traffic, but the face Liam was searching for was missing. He called the detective even though it was early. "Any news?" "Still nothing. We're checking shelters, nearby streets, security cameras. But no one seems to know this kid." "What do you mean no one knows him? He washes windshields every day. Someone has to." On the other end, the detective stayed calm. That's exactly what makes it harder. Street kids learn to disappear, to stay off the radar. They know that being seen too much is dangerous. But there was still something Liam didn't know. That night he decided to search on his own, swapped his blazer for a plain jacket, stuffed his phone in his pocket, and headed into the streets. He walked through alleys he hadn't visited since his teenage years, asked around for a skinny kid, brown skin, scar on his right eyebrow. He heard it all. Jokes, silence, suspicion, until an old man selling loose cigarettes pointed toward the back of the bus terminal. "There's a boy who sleeps there sometimes. Always hiding, never talks, just watches, angry." Liam followed the direction, heart pounding. Behind the terminal, wedged between two concrete pillars and a dirty mattress, there was something. A plastic bag with clothes, scraps of food, a small water bottle. But no one. Just the traces of someone who'd been there. He crouched down, touched the torn mattress like he was touching the past. And then he saw it. An old arcade token. Just like the ones he and Caleb used to collect as kids. A rare gold edition from a game that didn't exist anymore. Liam felt his throat tighten. It was his. He used to let Caleb play with it after finishing homework. One of the few good things they ever shared. Time passed. Night fell with the sour smell of burning trash and the rumble of buses pulling away. Liam was still there, standing, trying to decide whether to wait or give up. And then he heard footsteps behind him. He turned. Fast, it was him, the boy. Eyes sharper now, face more closed off. He didn't look surprised. He looked angry. "You followed me?" Liam stood slowly. "I searched. Because I need to know if I'm nobody to you." The words cut deeper than any scream. "You're my brother." "I know you are. That token." The boy laughed. a bitter, humorless laugh. That token means nothing. It's what was left. Left of what? Hell. The silence between them was a minefield now. Caleb, Liam whispered. Don't call me that. I don't use that name anymore. Liam froze. The words stuck in his throat. I spent years looking for you. Looking or forgetting? The boy spat. You went to college, got rich, made magazine covers, and you remembered me only when you saw my dirty face at a stoplight, Liam tried to explain, but there was no defense that fit. Everything would sound like an excuse. I was just a kid too. I didn't know what he did to you. I swear. Yes, you did, the boy said. You knew because you trembled when he yelled. Because you hid too, but you chose to forget, and I chose to run. Each word hit like a blade. Liam wanted to hug him, to scream, to undo the years, but all he could say was, give me a chance. The boy turned his back. I slept on the street because it was safer than our house. You have no idea what that means. And now you want a chance? That's not how it works. He took 3 steps and disappeared into the shadows of the terminal, but before he was gone, he said one thing, without turning around. If you want to find me again, don't bring excuses. Bring truth. And Liam stood there, alone, holding the token. With the weight of guilt crushing his chest, Liam spent the next 2 days trying to rehearse what he'd say. Words are easy when the other person is far away, when there aren't wounded eyes looking at you like you're part of the monster. But every rehearsed sentence fell apart when it mattered, because there's no script to patch the past. He returned to the terminal late in the afternoon. He brought only a backpack. No car, no suit, no signs of power, just knees buckled by guilt and a promise he wasn't even sure he could keep. The boy was there, sitting in the same corner, quiet. His expression wasn't surprise, it was exhaustion, like he had expected Liam to come back, just to prove that nothing had changed. I didn't bring excuses, Liam said, stopping 2 steps away. I brought what you asked for. The boy looked up, eyes filled with distrust. Truth? Liam opened his backpack. He pulled out a weathered wooden box. Slowly, he lifted the lid. Inside were old photos, the 2 of them as kids, dressed up for Halloween, smiling in the park, running in the yard. The gold arcade token, a keychain with the name Caleb, something Liam had kept without knowing why. I held on to this. For years, even when I didn't understand why. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was longing, but now I know I kept it because I needed to remember you existed, even when the whole world pretended you didn't. The boy took the token, turned it between his fingers. For a moment, his eyes cracked, but only for a moment. And after that? After I disappeared? What did you do? I tried to forget, because remembering hurt. I was scared I'd been complicit without meaning to, scared to admit I could have done more. The boy nodded. Like that wasn't news, just confirmation. You know what was worse than what he did to me? Caleb finally said, using his own name. It was what happened after. The silence. The nights I ate dinner in pain and no one asked. Everyone just pretended I was tired. Liam looked down. The knot in his throat felt like a rope pulled too tight to swallow. I thought if I didn't look, it wasn't real. But it was. It was real for me. Every night. Until the day I ran. Liam sat down on the same sidewalk, looking at his brother as if seeing him for the first time. I couldn't protect you back then, but maybe I can now. I want to help. The boy shook his head. Help how? With money, with some fancy therapist? You think that erases it? No, but maybe it heals. Slowly. But there was something he didn't expect. I don't want healing. I want justice. The silence between them dropped like a stone. Justice? You think he died and it's all over? It's not. Not for me. Not for someone who spent years afraid to fall asleep. He got off too easy. Liam understood. For the first time, he understood what Caleb really wanted. You want the world to know? I want you to know. I want you to scream it. Tell the press if you have to. I don't want to hide anymore. I don't want to hide me. If you really mean it, if you're really sorry, then say it. Say what happened in that house. Liam looked around. People walking, buses pulling out, but none of it mattered. Only them. If I do this, everyone will know. They'll talk about our family. My name could be dragged through the dirt, yours too. My name was dragged a long time ago, when you left me alone in that room. The words hit hard. A sentence, a line drawn. Liam took a deep breath. Okay, I'll say it. Publicly, I'll tell everything. Caleb hesitated. His eyes almost softened. And after that, whatever you want. You disappear. Or let me help. But you decide. The boy stood up slowly. Looked out at the city like a battlefield. You have until tomorrow to decide if you're really going to say it. If you don't look for me again. And he turned his back. Liam stayed there, sitting, the box in his hands, and the weight of a decision that could change everything, or end the only chance he had left. The night didn't pass. It dragged Liam like a filthy tide, drowning every thought in guilt and paralysis. The digital clock in the corner of the room blinked in red. 3:20 a.m., 4:11, 5. But he didn't sleep. Just stared at the camera in front of him, off like it was a mirror demanding truths he still didn't know how to say. Next to it, a handwritten letter, scribbled over dozens of times. It started with, "My name is Liam," then turned into, "When I was a kid, then I'm not proud of this." None of it felt right. All of it felt like a lie. Outside, the city lights still sparkled, indifferent. But inside him, everything had gone dark. The deadline Caleb gave, by tomorrow, was now today. And Liam knew what he had to do. He just didn't know if he could. He stood up, took a cold shower, threw on a plain t-shirt. Turned on. The camera? The red light blinked, recording. "My name is Liam Cross, and what I'm about to say has cost me over a decade of silence." He stopped, took a deep breath, began again. "When I was 11, my younger brother Caleb disappeared. For years my family said he'd been kidnapped, but that's not what happened." His voice trembled. "Not from fear, from pain. Caleb ran away, because our house was the kind of place you run from, because my father..." He froze. His throat closed. The image of his father, and standing in the hallway with the belt in his hand, hit too hard. His mother crying. The muffled sounds from the next room. The silence he chose, but there was something he'd never faced before. "My father abused Caleb. And I knew. Not with the right words, but I knew. And I did nothing." He stopped, closed his eyes. The tears came like a broken dam. He hit the button. Recording stopped. Silence again. Liam curled up on the couch, arms over knees, like he was a child again. Like the moment when he heard his brother cry and turned the other way, pretending to sleep. That moment never stopped hurting. Never. He tried to start again. But the camera felt like a courtroom, and he, a defendant with no defense, he picked up his phone, called the only person who might understand. "Mom," she picked up quickly, like she'd been waiting. "Are you going to tell?" "I can't." She sighed. Long, heavy, I couldn't either. And look where that got us. Liam closed his eyes. "I want to protect him now, but I'm afraid I'll just hurt him more. The only thing that hurts is silence. That's what almost killed my son. That's what destroyed you." The call dropped. Or maybe she hung up. It didn't matter. Then, the intercom buzzed. Liam answered. A delivery. An envelope with no return address, no signature. Inside a note, shaky handwriting. Maybe Caleb's. "If you're not going to tell everything, don't start. If you want to protect me, start by protecting the truth. And remember, I survived, but I didn't forget." Liam read it again, and again. It wasn't just a message. It was permission. A scream tucked into small words. He went back to the camera, turned it on, hit record. Faced the lens like it was Caleb on the other side, waiting for him to finally say what no one ever had. "My name is Liam, and today I'm here to say my family wasn't a family. It was a prison. And I was complicit. Even if I didn't mean to be, I was. And this video is for everyone who survived in silence, like my brother." But halfway through, his image flickered, his voice broke. His body slumped forward, and he cried like he hadn't in 25 years, because in that moment he realized he could say everything, but maybe it still wouldn't be enough. The video went live at 8 a.m. No marketing strategy, no edits. Just a static camera and the trembling voice of a man learning to name his guilt. In less than an hour, it had thousands of views. By 3 hours, it was everywhere. But Liam didn't care about numbers. He turned off his phone, locked himself in his room, and waited. Not for likes or comments. He waited for a sign. One. That might never come. On the other side of the city, in a makeshift shelter run by an NGO that helped homeless youth, a small group huddled around an old tablet. They watched the screen like it was fiction, but for Caleb it was painfully real. He didn't speak, didn't react, didn't ask for quiet. He just listened. And with every word Liam said, every time he whispered, "I'm sorry," something inside Caleb began to unravel. Because the man in that video wasn't the magazine cover executive. He wasn't the distant brother who vanished into the easy choices of life. He was the 11-year-old boy who trembled too, who hid in the same closet, who shared the fear, but never faced it. Caleb closed the tablet, stood up without a word and walked out. But there was still something he needed to understand. Liam was still locked in. His mother had called 4 times. Friends, journalists, former investors, all of them wanted to know the why, the fallout, the official statement. But he didn't answer, because the only response he was waiting for was from someone who might never want to see him again, until the intercom buzzed. Again. This time, he picked up without thinking. "Who is it?" "It's me." The voice was quiet, restrained, but unmistakable. Liam ran down. He opened the gate like opening his chest, and there was Caleb standing with his backpack slung over his shoulder. The same one as before, his eyes hard, but something had changed. "I saw the video," he said. Liam didn't know how to react. He had expected anything but that. "I didn't know if I should." "I'm not here to hug you," Caleb cut in, "and not to forgive you. I came because I needed to see if you were man enough to face what comes next." "I am," Liam said, almost a whisper. "Then listen, because now it's my turn to speak." They went inside together, sat in the kitchen like 2 strangers trying to decode their own blood. "When I ran away, I thought about dying. Not because I wanted to, but because it seemed easier. Every street felt like punishment, every night a test, and every time I saw a father hug his kid on the sidewalk, I remembered what I never had." Liam didn't interrupt. He just listened. "But I survived, slept in shelters, ate leftovers from markets, ran from people worse than our father. And still I made it, because I wanted one thing, to never feel afraid again. Silence, but not the kind that hurt. This one just weighed, like truth should. The video was real. It hurt to watch, but it was real. For the first time, I saw you as human." "I am," Liam said, "more than anything else." Caleb took a deep breath, looked around. The kitchen was cold, modern, sterile. But that didn't matter. "I don't know if I can call you my brother yet. But maybe we can start with a different word." "What word?" "Witness." Liam furrowed his brow. "You're going to speak too?" Caleb nodded. "If I stay quiet, he wins again. And I've been silent too long. But this time, I want you by my side. Not in front, beside me." And for the first time in years, Liam felt something he never thought he would again. Pride. Not in himself, in the boy in front of him, who walked through hell and came back with his voice intact. "I'll be there. Wherever you need me." Caleb stood. "Then let's start from the beginning. Because now, it's our turn to shout." Liam's office was quieter than it had ever been. The screens were dark, the couches empty, the city view blocked by curtains. But that morning, for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel empty. It felt full. Caleb sat in the swivel chair, like he was facing a foreign land. He wasn't sure if this space was a refuge or a museum of everything Liam built, while he fought to survive. "You work here?" he asked. Not sarcastic, just curious. Liam smiled softly. "I used to, before all this." Caleb nodded, looked around. "There's a lot of stuff in here that shines." but not much that feels alive. Liam felt the weight of those words. They were true. For years he had stacked up achievements to cover what hurt, and now he finally saw it. None of it had ever been home. That's why I want to use this for something real, for what we're about to do. Caleb turned to him. You really think people will listen? They listen to the video. They'll listen to you, because you carry a story too many people are still forced to bury. If you speak, they won't be able to ignore it. Caleb took a deep breath. It wasn't easy. It wasn't just telling a story. It was opening wounds, naming monsters. And once you do that, there's no going back. But something felt different now. I want it to be real, no scripts, no makeup. I want to show what was done to me, what's still done to other boys even today. I want the world to stop thinking that when kids disappear, it's always strangers. Sometimes the danger's inside the house, Liam nodded. You choose how. I just want to be by your side and protect you this time. The days that followed were an emotional laboratory. Meetings with psychologists, producers, and ethical journalists. Caleb spent hours sharing his story with a small, trusted team. Every detail was recorded with care. Nothing would be sensationalized. Everything would be honored. But there were still moments of silence, like when Caleb woke up drenched in sweat, eyes darting like he expected the door to fly open, or when he flinched at sudden touches. Liam learned not to ask, just to be there. One night, they sat on the apartment balcony. The city behind them seemed to breathe more calmly. Do you still get scared? Liam asked. Fear never goes away, it just learns how to walk with you. And the anger, Caleb hesitated. That too. But now, it has direction. Before it was just fire. Now it's fuel. Liam smiled. That boy wasn't just a survivor, he was reborn, but there was still something between them. I still think about that night. I wonder, what if I had followed you? If I'd climbed the wall after you? Caleb didn't answer right away. He looked up at the sky. A shooting star crossed quickly like it was in a hurry. You were just a boy. And I needed to run alone. I had to find myself. And now, you're here. That's enough. The next week, the documentary went into production. The name Caleb chose was simple, but devastating. While everyone slept, Liam helped with logistics, but he didn't touch the content. This was Caleb's, and it was powerful to watch his brother take shape, find voice, become visible. It was painful too, but for the first time, the pain had a purpose. One day before the teaser launch, Caleb walked into the office with an envelope. This I kept for years. Liam opened it. Inside was a pencil-written letter. The handwriting was shaky, childish. It began, Liam, I'm sorry I ran away. It ended, I just wanted someone to truly see me. Liam couldn't hold back the tears. I see you now? Caleb smiled. Small but real, and I'm letting myself be seen. That was the start of everything. The documentary premiered in a small room at a community cultural center. No red carpets, no flashbulbs, just 20 chairs, a simple projector, and a silence heavy with expectation. Caleb sat in the back row. He didn't want to see faces turned toward him. He wanted to see how they reacted when they didn't know he was there. Liam sat beside him, silent. He was just the audience now. The spotlight belonged to his brother. The lights dimmed, the screen lit up, and the truth began. In the first few minutes, the documentary showed images of the streets Caleb had walked, the places he'd slept, the scars, physical and emotional. Then the camera focused on his face. No cuts, no music, just him and his courage. My name used to be Caleb. Cross, and for years I ran. The room was silent. Some swallowed hard, others had tear-filled eyes, but no one looked away. Because this wasn't acting, it was testimony. I didn't run from kidnappers. I ran from home, from the place that was supposed to protect me, because my father touched me, threatened me, made me believe it was my fault. Liam's breath hitched. Even knowing it, hearing it from Caleb's mouth was like crossing fire again, and what hurt the most was the silence, the complicity. The absence of someone who could have said, I see you, but no one did. The room went dark again as the screening ended. When the lights came back on, no one moved, no applause, no chatter. It was as if the entire world needed one more minute just to process what they'd seen. Caleb stood up quietly. But on his way out, a woman recognized him. She stood and hugged him, said nothing, just held him. Soon another person did the same. Within minutes, he was surrounded by people who only wanted to say with their bodies, "We heard you." That was when everything changed. Outside, a news crew was waiting. Liam's video had already spread across networks. And now, with the release of the documentary, the name Caleb Cross was one of the most searched in the country. Liam tried to shield his brother from the media storm, but Caleb stopped him. "I'm not hiding anymore." He walked up to one of the reporters' mics and with steady voice said, "If I'm speaking today, it's because I survived. But there are so many people still out there, in silent homes, behind locked doors. I'm here for them, not for me." The clip went viral within minutes. The press called it a historic reckoning. NGOs mobilized. Support groups for survivors of child abuse launched campaigns. Caleb's name became a symbol, not of pain, but of strength. But there was still something unresolved. 2 days later, a letter arrived at Liam's apartment building. No return address, no postage, just a single folded page, written in an old-fashioned hand. "If you want justice, meet me. Old Warehouse, Route 14, today. No cameras, just you." It was their uncle, their father's brother, a man they hadn't seen since the funeral. Liam hesitated, showed the letter to Caleb. It could be a setup. It could be necessary. Caleb interrupted. "I'm going." The warehouse was dark, rusted, steeped in silence. Their uncle appeared, thinner, older, red-eyed, and for the first time he spoke with a truth no one expected. I always knew, but he was my brother, so I kept quiet." Caleb stepped forward. "You saw, and you did nothing." The man shook. "I was a coward. But if my cowardice can serve any purpose now, let it be to confirm that what you lived through was real. He wasn't just a secret monster. He was a criminal. I'll testify to that." Liam stepped closer. Caleb took a breath. "Then come with us. Own it. Publicly." "I will," the uncle said, firm for the first time. And in that moment, something shifted in Caleb. It wasn't forgiveness. It was liberation. The chain of silence broke there. Months later, the city still spoke of Caleb. Not like people talk about scandals, but like they speak about survival. The documentary, While Everyone Slept, was shown in schools, universities, and youth shelters. It became more than a story. It was a collective cry. Liam watched from a distance, not out of fear, out of respect. He'd learned not all healing happens under a spotlight. Some healing lives in the quiet of those who finally learn to listen. And that's what he became, a listener. He left behind his titles, companies, investments. Together with Caleb, he founded a non-profit offering psychological and legal support to young survivors of domestic abuse. They named it Awakened Voices. Caleb now lived in a small house near the cultural center. Simple, wide windows, plants on the porch, no security guards, just air and routine. Their relationship never turned into a fairy tale. There were still silent days, painful memories, nightmares that returned. But between them now was a new kind of truth, presence, and partnership. On a random Sunday, they sat at the same intersection where everything began. The traffic lights still ticked. The same. The usual street vendors competed for space with jugglers and window washers. "Sometimes I think about coming back here with that same dirty rag," Caleb said, eyes on the asphalt. "Just to remember what it was like not to be seen." Liam smiled. "And I think about showing up in that same arrogant business suit, just to see if I'd still be able to find you." They laughed. A new kind of laugh, not of pain, but of the path they'd walked. The following week, a public hearing brought together government officials and civil rights advocates. This time, Liam and Caleb stood side by side. Their uncle was there too, his voice shaky but strong, signing statements detailing the abuse, validating old reports that were finally leading to legal action. Their father's name was added to official records as a case study in institutional failure. The house where they'd grown up was turned over to Awakened Voices, repurposed into a trauma-informed listening center. Where silence once ruled, stories now echoed. And each story broke the cycle a little more. But Caleb still had one more thing to do. One late afternoon, he walked to the old vacant lot behind their childhood home, the place he slept rough on his first night after running away. He found an aged tree, its bark scarred with knife marks. CC, still visible. He pulled a pocket knife from his jeans, knelt down and carved beneath it, Reborn. He walked back home lighter, like someone who no longer needed to run. At the final event of the year, an 11-year-old boy stepped on stage, an orphan, living on the streets just 2 months ago, now taken in by the foundation. He shared how Caleb's story gave him the courage to report his stepfather. Afterward, he searched the crowd for Caleb, hugged him tight, and whispered, "Thank you for not staying silent." Caleb didn't say a word. He just held the boy against his chest. Then he turned to Liam. "Now I understand." Understand what? Why I survived. It wasn't just for me. Liam nodded, heart full of something that finally made sense. It was to be the voice you never had. And now I am, even when it hurts. The auditorium rose in applause. But for them, the most beautiful sound was the silent promise between two brothers. The cycle ends here. On the way home, they stopped at the same red light. A kid was wiping windshields with a tired look in his eyes. Caleb looked. So did Liam. They said nothing, but this time, they stopped. Thank you for reading this far, but don't leave just yet. The next emotional story is already waiting on the screen beside you. Click, subscribe to the channel, and share this message. I'll be there. Be there.